Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Wednesday Wisdom on the Education Lady podcast. Wednesday Wisdom sponsored by K-12 Sports Tech. We want to give a shout out to them and all of our great sponsors, and then we'll be back with our Wednesday Wisdom guests. So take 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, don't hit that fast forward button, and we'll be right back. Here we go. We want to thank K-12 Sports Tech for sponsoring Wednesday Wisdom. And if you go to their website, you're going to see how K-12 Sports Tech helps athletic directors and sport vendors connect through education and hands-on consulting. Athletic directors are also invited to join the K-12 Sports Tech AD think tank to help influence how companies shape their tech to better serve schools. To get started, just go to k12sportstech.com. That's it, k12sportstech.com. We also want to say thanks to Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. My assistant athletic director, along with thousands of others, got his master's from Ohio, and it was a great experience. It's very affordable, just 20 months, totally online. And you're also completing 11 NIAAA leadership training courses while you get your master's at no extra charge. To get started, just go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters. We want to say thank you to Athletic, to Gipper. We want to say thanks to Gipper for their support. Go to Gipper.com, and their team is going to have you creating world-class content in seconds. It's used and trusted by over 20,000 schools and college programs. It's professional graphic design made simple, whether it's a social media post highlighting a big win or an entire newsletter celebrating all the great things that you do. Go to Gipper.com. Get started now. That's Gipper.com. We also want to say thanks to our good friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. You can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their scoreboards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. We also want to say thank you to Home Campus. Home Campus is one of those platforms you're going to use every day, whether it's scheduling, rosters, results. Their athlete eligibility and clearance platform alone is worth the price. To get started, just go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. We want to say thank you to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the different events, or to show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to showcase your school's history and brag about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. Make sure you check them out today. We'd like to say thank you to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years. As an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. Our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes loved the videos, and our parents loved the streaming, but there is so much more. Go to huddle.com. Join the 8 million users. Find out how to turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Snap Raise. If you're ever spent weeks with a fundraiser and then been disappointed in the results, well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can take a look at their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com. We want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing. Hometown is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. And whether it's more support, more security, or more customization, the Hometown team is here to help you make the best online ticketing solution. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. And we'd like to thank Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Athletic directors already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a very small group that just wants to complain. Athletic Surveys is going to connect you to that group so you can hear their concerns, hopefully address them, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% that supports your program. And having that type of data in your hands is incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with a frustrated parent or maybe your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Well, Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome back to another segment of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast. I can think of no better guest to have as we kick off 2025 than our good friend Jen Garrett. Longtime listeners will recognize that name. If you're new to the podcast, Jen has a tremendous background. Oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start. Well, let's say best-selling author. She's a host of her own successful podcast. She's a consultant with professional athletes and C-suite executives. I dare say she's an expert in marketing and promotion. And I always say this. Oh, by the way, she has 7 college degrees. I'll let her share her favorite one. But Jennifer Garrett, welcome back to Wednesday Wisdom and Happy New Year.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be the first Wednesday Wisdom guest of the new year. So we're going to definitely keep things moving here. And I'm so glad to be a part of this and be on the journey with you. So thank you for always having me on the show.
Oh, no, absolutely. And again, for our listeners, you need to check out, Jen's her website first of all, and all the resources that she has for leaders of all kinds. But athletic directors and coaches certainly can benefit from all the resources that she provides. I'm going to get out of the way and just ask the question, Jen, what do you have for our listeners on the first Wednesday Wisdom of 2025?
Well, you mentioned that I host a podcast of my own. It's called Move the Ball. So, to kick off the new year, what I wanted to do today is give our listeners some tips on how to move the ball and also dominate the new year. So, these are some actionable things that you should be putting into practice so that you can really make this year a productive year, crush it, and go after whatever it is you have set out to do this year. So, I've got 5 tips that I want to share today. So the first one, and let me just say, these are not earth-shattering tips. These are more just getting back to basics and fundamentals, but sometimes we need to hear them. So the first one is to start each day with a game plan. We all know in the world of sports, preparation is key. Preparation is a broad word. So what should we be doing? One thing that I like to do every week is I have my goals for the week, right? Those goals will change every week as I'm ticking them off. But I like to identify, okay, this is the first week in January. So what do I want to do to really set the tone for the new year? So I've got my goals, and then I'm going to plan out what is it that I need to get done each day that aligns specifically with those goals. So if I were to look at my top 3 priorities, those are the things that I need to do each day. So I'm planning out my day. I'm being very strategic, intentional, and deliberate with how I want to spend my time, making sure that I'm focusing on those priorities each day. So every night, then I'm assessing, how did I do? You're reviewing the game film, if you will, and you're thinking back on, okay, what went well? What didn't go well? What do I need to do tomorrow? But just having this routine of planning out your day every day is going to ensure that you're more productive. Now, that doesn't mean things aren't going to come up or you're going to have to reshift priorities. Of course, that's going to happen. That's life. But you want to start out with a plan, and then you pivot and you adjust as you need to along the way. So that's the first tip. The second one, so you mentioned, Jake, that I've written a couple books. One of them is called Move the Ball. The second one is called Dominate the Game. And in that second book, there's a chapter titled Manage the Game Clock. I'm sure you can tell that there's a lot of sports references here. For those that are frequent listeners, I throw them in quite a bit. But managing the game clock, in a football game, as an example, you've got 60 minutes of regulation. For us, our game clock is 24 hours, 1,440 minutes, 86,400 seconds each day. So you need to be very intentional with how am I going to spend all of that time. And when you have this plan, it allows you to better prioritize those things so that you can nix the distractions, tune out the noise. For those that are coaches, you're probably telling your players, to tune out that noise on social media. You have to tune out that noise when it comes to all these other distractions, whether it's social media or something else that's going on, and stay focused on the tasks that you have set out for the day that align with those weekly goals. So one of those things something that you'll probably like too, Jake, is so there's a guy by the name of J.J. Burden, which is a name you'll probably recognize as you're an Oregon fan, played at the University of Oregon. Something that J.J. said to me in season 1 of my podcast, I've done 5 seasons, we're about to go into season 6, is he said, you have to protect your focus like it's $1 million suitcase. And when you think about and when you think about, what is competing for your time, you have to look at, am I willing to give my money to that thing? Because your time is essentially like money, right? So you need to stay focused on what is your task at hand, not giving into the things that aren't in alignment with what you have planned for the week. And so, that would be the second tip is, just again, manage that game clock, protect your focus. Now, the third part of this, which goes hand in hand with managing the game clock, is block time. This is not a new concept. I didn't come up with it, but it's very effective. So what you're doing is you're scheduling 45-minute chunks of time in your day to handle a specific activity. And all you're doing during that time is that thing until you get it done. So you're not checking email. Even if the chimes are going off, you're not paying attention to it. Now, if there's an emergency, people will call you, your phone will be blowing up, and you'll be like, what is going on? You'll know. But otherwise, you just have that time carved out for that specific task. And then when you're done with it, then you can do something else. But it's really important to have those chunks of time throughout the day for those critical activities. And if you get done early, great. If you hit that 45-minute mark and you're not quite done yet, just keep pushing through, get it done. And then you can reward yourself by checking out social media or going through your email, or even make it like a game. Hey, if I get these things done, I'm going to give myself X number of points. If I hit certain number of points in a week, then I'm going to treat myself to whatever. So you can make it fun too, because life is supposed to be fun. It's not all just work, 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 grind, grind, grind. So mix some fun and rewards in there as well. So the next thing that I think is very important to do is to leverage a morning routine. We all know that the habits we put in place drive the outcomes that we have each day, each week, each month, right? And you have to have the right habits in place consistently to get to where you want to go. Something that I do in the morning is I have what's called a morning power hour. So in that time, what I'm doing is I'm carving out time to eat healthy. We all know the importance of a healthy diet. So I'm eating something healthy to fuel my mind and my body. Second, there's coffee there too, by the way. Second, I'm also reviewing my plan for the day, looking at, okay, are these still the priorities for the day? Or based on something that might have happened overnight or just some rethinking, do I need to shift that? And then I'm also carving out some time there to just think strategically, bigger pictures. So I'm removing myself from the tactical and kind of looking at the broader, thinking about, okay, as I look at my business and the things I have going on, what are some other things I might want to think creatively about, or other plans that I'm just putting on paper? I'm not necessarily doing anything for those, but it's just giving me time to think about those things and to brainstorm, to be creative, to be innovative, to think out of the box. So you don't have to follow that specific morning routine, but figure out what is your morning routine. Oh, and then I'm also doing some light stretching, just opening the body up as it gets you just ready to take on the day too. But you figure out what is going to be your morning routine, and it doesn't have to be an hour. You set whatever cadence it is that you want it to be, but just do that consistently and get into whatever kind of gets you energized and ready to take on the day. So that's the fourth one. And then the fifth one is to incorporate recovery time. We see people talk about the hustle and the grind, and you got to wake up at zero dark 30 and just go, 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 go until you're going to drop dead with exhaustion. And so there are some people that subscribe to that. I do not subscribe to that philosophy. For me, it's really about rest, recovery, making sure you're getting enough sleep so that your mind and your body can reset and recharge. And then it's hitting the next day being as productive as you can be because you have rested and then you've got these other habits in place to be able to just take on the day and get what you need to get done. So those would be my five that I would share. I will also say that bonus one, number six, is make sure you're investing in your growth and development, whether it's a new skill or it's something that you've always wanted to learn more about. Maybe it's not a skill specific to your job, but it's always important that we're growing, that we're learning, that we're investing time in a podcast, in a book, in a course, whatever that might be, so that you can continue to grow and progress along your journey. So those would be the things that I would share today to help you really not only move the ball in 2025, but to dominate the game.
I love them all. You probably saw me scribbling down those notes. And you're right. They're not, earth-shattering secrets, but I think a lot of times we just need, to hear from someone else. Hey, and you use this term back to basics. I'm also very glad that you included as your fifth one, recovery. We always talk about athletic directors and coaches being servant leaders, and they're, pouring themselves into their student athletes and their coaches and their community. Well, sometimes you got to pour into yourself too, and make sure that you're taking care of yourself. The old cliche, you can't help somebody else if you're not helping yourself. So very cool stuff. Um, let's talk about some of the resources before I let you go. You mentioned the books and the podcast. First of all, what's the website? How can our listeners find out more about all things Jennifer Garrett?
Sure. Yeah. The website is www.getinsidethehuddle.com. Again, sports references, but it's catchy. It's better than just my name. So that's where you can go.
Mhm. And the books. If you don't have these two books in your library, you really should. Talking to the listeners now, which one would you say is the best one to lead into? I know you wrote, one was the first book, but Move the Ball or Dominate the Game. Which one would you recommend for that newbie that's listening to the podcast and hasn't got one yet?
That's a great question. So I would say, Dominate the Game is a little bit more contemporary and it's not quite as Move the Ball was very football specific terminology and stuff. So if you're not as quite that big in football per se, maybe Dominate the Game is better for you. And there's a lot more. I mean, I wrote Move the Ball 10 years ago. So Dominate the Game, is a more recent book. It's got some more recent sports examples as well to highlight different points. And I actually just last month released the audiobook version of Dominate the Game for those who like to listen. I prefer to read hard copy. However, just from a time standpoint, it's so much easier for me to go grab an audiobook. And Jake, that I also balance a military career. And so I have to drive quite a distance from my military duties. So it's easy for me just to, listen to it while I'm driving or flying on a plane places as well. So I would say Dominate the Game would probably be the better one for those that are a fan of all sports or that are looking for more of a broader lens on sports metaphors and references to help you kind of continue to grow and move forward.
Okay. And then our podcast recommendation, where can they listen to the podcast?
Yeah, Move the Ball podcast is on all the major podcast platforms. You can also go to movetheballpodcast.com and check out all the episodes there.
Okay. Well, Jen, as always, thanks for sharing with our listeners. Thank you for your service. Don't want to forget that. And I'm hoping that you find some time to practice number five. Take a little recovery because you are always on the go, very active on social media, very active in the real world. But thanks again for all you do in our space.
Thank you so much for having me.
For our listeners, we want to say thanks to you and just remind you that we upload the Zoom recordings of every interview to the Education Lady Podcast YouTube channel. We do Wednesday Wisdom every single week and just about every day. We try to share best practices. So come back and join us on the next episode of Wednesday Wisdom. And like I said, just about every day on the Educational AD podcast. We'll see you next time. Boy, Jen Garrett, always a great time. Make sure you check out the website, the podcast, and the books. Tremendous resource. Before we go, as always, we do want to recognize our sponsors. K-12 Sports Tech has been sponsoring Wednesday Wisdom this past year, along with our other great sponsors. Go see Gipper, that's Gipper.com. Huddle, you'll find them at Huddle.com. Ohio University's Online Masters, you'll find them at ohio.edu/info/MAA. Home Campus, you'll find them at homecampus.com. Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards, sidelineinteractive.com. Hometown Ticketing, hometownticketing.com. Snap Raise, that's snapraise.com. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack, athleticsurveys.com. And Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Of course, you'll find them at vitalsignswalloffame.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.